Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trace Trocco, joined by Adam Eaton. Welcome in to Sons of UCF Live. Adam, hello.
Trace, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever
Good morning.
you are listening and watching us. Glad to be back. Glad to be on another live show with you. A fun one tonight. We have Paul Catalina from 365 joining us. We have some. Has anyone gone on the portal, Trace, in the last 10 minutes?
Check, refresh.
Okay. Let me know if anybody goes in the portal, guys, because I'm not paying attention right now. But I'm sure we'll talk about that. What's in the box, and we got all kinds of good stuff. And our first guest is already here and ready to go, Trace.
And it's Easter weekend, which I like to have jokes, Adam. It's one of your favorite things in the world. So I've peppered the rundown with some jokes. Let's begin, Adam. What did one Easter egg say to the other?
You crack me up.
Ooh, that's good. That's not bad. Heard any good jokes lately? But I like yours too.
Thank you. I'm ashamed.
Yeah, we're gonna talk.
I went to college.
UCF football, the final week of spring camp, but UCF baseball back in action because Easter. They start Thursday. It'll be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. The Knights hosting number 15 TCU. Andrew Gregg, Suns intern extraordinaire, has been at John Juliano Park. Joins us now live. Game just wrapping up. Andrew, Knights started off all right pitching, but things got away from them.
Yeah, things really fell. Hey, thank you guys for having me, by the way. But things really fell apart for the Knights in the third inning when they gave up their first 2 runs. It was not so much the pitching today, which has been a little bit of a lackluster on the weekends during Big 12 conference play. So we've lost 11 of our last 13 games in conference play now. But the offense just wasn't there. They only scored 1 run in the 4th inning, and after that, it was just completely scoreless in 9 innings for the offense besides that 1 run in the 4th inning. So the pitching kept us afloat for at least long enough as they could have, but the hitting just wasn't there today in a 6-1 loss against the TCU Horned Frogs.
Yeah, lost 11 of 13. Adam, that doesn't sound good.
It's not good.
Would you agree with me?
Yeah.
Talk about pitcher Cameron Wicker for the Knights, though.
Yeah, Cam Wicker had one of his best starts since he's been a Knight so far. I mean, he went 5 innings and only gave up 2 earned runs, which was one of the best starts we've had in a weekend in a while, especially coming off a weekend where he only made it through 4 outs his last weekend start out. He didn't make it past the 2nd inning, so definitely a good start from him and maybe some more developmental stuff, and maybe we could see him in some weekends to kind of close out the season here. But after that, you have Isaac Williams come in. He makes it through an inning and gives up 3 earned runs, and then it kind of all fell apart for the Knights after that.
Andrew, I can't help but notice a lot of purple shirts walking behind you. What was the crowd like tonight at the John?
Yeah, if it wasn't an even split, it might have been more TCU fans than UCF Knight fans out here tonight. There was a big traveling crowd from the TCU out here, and it was a little bit disappointing to see. But I mean, when one team is doing super well and the 15th team in the nation, then the other one is coming off 11 or 10 out of 12 at that point, it's kind of tough.
You were in the press box tonight, but on Tuesday you were out on the field. Tell us a little bit about the mascot race. How did you get recruited for this, sir?
Yeah, so in the middle of the 6th inning, they tapped me on my shoulder and said, "Sons of UCF, would you mind doing the mascot race?" And I was like, I looked over at Nick Williams, my co-partner here, and I was like, I mean, I'll do it if I have to. And
I'll do it if I have to. I'll dress up like a cucumber if you make me.
It might not have been a necessity, but I thought I'd have a good chance of winning it. So I entered into the race. It kind of hindered my ability to cover the 7th inning, but fortunately I was able to get out there. There was somebody on my tail the whole way, and I didn't even realize it, but I was able to kind of stride through at the end for the victory.
Let folks in on this. You do a lot of running around the UCF campus all week long.
Yeah, so I slowed down a little bit just because of the fact that I've had shin splints as of recently. But before that, I was running anywhere from like 20 to 30 miles a week. Long runs would be anywhere from like 10 to 13 miles. So a lot of fun, especially after maybe a long day of baseball. It's easy to get your mind off things. Just go for like a little 10-mile run after a Saturday night baseball game.
I think it's beginning to make sense why you got shin splints with all those miles. Andrew Gregg out at John Juliano Park. Knights lose to number 15 TCU 6-1. Andrew, we'll let you get to post game with Coach Wallace.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me. I mean, go Knights. It's been rough, but go Knights.
Charge on. Thank you, Andrew. We have a little clip that Nick Williams shot out in baseball on Tuesday, and let's see that testimonial from Mr. Gregg.
Come on, Sons of UCF, we do this.
We do this.
We don't do this. No, we don't. We absolutely do not do whatever it is he was doing there. No. I believe he said, "quote a little 10-mile run," which I don't think that works for me. No.
Well, and he'll leave UCF baseball games and post game and uploading clips to Twitter and the like, and then he'll go running into the wee hours of the morning. So that's a little harder than I ought to be in college again.
Good for him. Good luck to you, son. Good luck. I also like that someone taps him on the shoulder and just calls him Sons of UCF as if he has no other name. I love that for the brand awareness. I appreciate that very much. So.
He informed me that he was tapped again for this evening's game, but was wearing jeans, so decided not to partake. So I'm wondering if they'll tap Nick, and what if I'm there? Do I participate or do I decline?
Well, listen, we have a 1-0 streak right now, Trace. I'm going to need you, if you get tapped in the shoulder, like I'm going to need you to do your thing. We do this, is what I heard. I'm going to need you to also do this.
Do we all do this? All of us?
Apparently, that's according to Andrew. We all do this. So I'm going to need you to do your part if you're there.
I love that clip. We'll have to work that into future shows. All right, shifting to football, the final week of spring camp. I usually off the top, I got lost in telling jokes. Mr. Matt Dolan reminding us 19 weeks until the start of the 2025 football season. Fifth quarter UCF. 133 days, which, by the way, 19 times 7 does equal 133. You were asking about the math last week. But really, I guess before we get to the spring camp resumption here this week, Tuesday, Thursday, and then the final practice on Saturday, as the portal turns, it's open now. And so far, no big surprises, Adam. We knew about Dylan Risk going into last week, which was really more a timing issue than a total surprise, but nothing here that seems that would rock the boat.
No, and what I really liked, Trace, was Marcus Downs, defensive tackle, who was listed on your screen there. He announced his entry to the portal, and that was retweeted by Kenny Martin, who basically said, this kid is great. He's going to be an attribute to anybody's team. And I believe if I understood this correctly, he's still practicing this week with UCF, even though he's in the portal, which I think goes to show, hopefully, a mature conversation happened between coach and player, and a airing of where things are at, and a player makes a decision and a coach supports that. So you can talk about the portal in a lot of different ways, but to me, this sounds like an honest, open conversation and a support that will continue on, even though this young man decides to leave UCF, which if that's the way this went down, I'm actually really, really happy to see that that's the way things are going at UCF. That's the way this football team is progressing. Now it's 2 days in, so maybe I'll be proven wrong here in 24 short hours.
All kinds of names.
I did like to see that a kid announces, a coach endorses that kid, and he's still welcome back at practice as he continues to get reps and work on whatever will be next for him. I do think that's a good sign, hopefully, that this coaching staff and these players are building that culture of trust we're hearing a lot about, that you can have these kind of conversations.
Half a dozen names outgoing, one incoming. Offensive tackle Connor Meadows from Tennessee State is the first name coming into the portal for UCF. Dylan Risk goes in. What do you think here? Do they add a quarterback to that room at some point? Who do you find coming out of spring?
It's a great question. Look, I think Mackenzie said in his availability that if we lose one, we want to bring one back in. Look at where UCF is at now. With all due respect to Brock Hansel, the walk-on, he's probably not going to factor into the depth chart. Cam Fancher appears to not be practicing this week, Tracy. We've seen him pictures. You and the guys have posted tape on his fingers. Appears to not be practicing right now. That leaves UCF with 2 scholarship quarterbacks. How quickly things change from we have all these guys in the quarterback room to now we only have 2. So that leads me to think that UCF will go out and search for another kid, somebody out there that may make some sense. I'm curious if they go with somebody with some experience, somebody with some reps, or do they find somebody who's maybe younger that they want to groom? I think that's the question, but I don't think it's a question. UCF goes and finds somebody else in the quarterback room to be in the portal.
It shows you, right? You lose Dylan Risk, but you still have Cam Fancher. And then Friday's open practice, Fancher hurt, hit his hand on something. We haven't heard an official injury status as well. Talked to Coach Frost on Saturday, and his fingers are bandaged. He's, for him at least, right? He seems to have had a good spring and got the bulk of it in. But as you mentioned, a week or so ago, you had 4 guys splitting reps, and a week later, you got 2 guys.
Well, that's across the board, Trace. I mean, I know the unfortunate part of college football coverage in 2025 is you and the other folks in the media are watching folks walk into practice with a checklist, trying to see who's there and who's not, and who clocked into work today and who didn't. But we also learned, I think, through that process that there are some guys that are kind of banged up with injuries, illnesses, right? So, with the end of a long practice session coming up here for UCF this week, there's probably some guys dinged up. And I think if you're coaching staff, you have to understand, do I have the right level of depth at my positions? Can I withstand a couple of injuries? And I'm curious how UCF kind of thinks about that as you saw some guys coming in. Again, you and Dwayne and Andrew and the other guys who are covering, Chris Boyle, Matt Michelle, do a great job of watching folks walk in. You see a lot of guys walking in without pads on these days, Trace. A lot of guys walking in with just jerseys on. So that clearly shows you UCF's probably going to have to address depth in some areas. I think wide receiver maybe one, just based on what we're seeing there. But I do think quarterback is another opportunity for UCF to find some depth.
You mentioned wide receiver. Of course, Day Farmer going down in an Oklahoma drill, not even contact, just landed awkwardly, in that move there. And he's out on crutches, announcing on his social media that he'll see Night Nation in 2026. It was Matt Michelle, the Orlando Sentinel, Chris Boyle, Daytona Beach News Journal, with the roster for the Thursday start of practice, going through, checking guys, and saw a few guys not walk out that are in the linebacker group, and it was linebacker day, which made it interesting when Chris asked linebacker coach Mark D'Onofrio, hey, what about these guys? And he said, not to worry, they're ill. Of course, we'll see if they're ill or entering into the portal. But let's hear from Coach D'Onofrio on what he thinks the biggest improvement made by the linebackers so far during spring camp.
It always has to be fundamentally, I think, right, at the end of the day, in my opinion, right, especially coaching linebackers. I think getting better fundamentally, getting better in terms of playing, better pad level, better base, playing with their feet underneath them, being able to strike and escape and get off blocks, right, all those fundamentals. I think that's the biggest thing, is watching the group grow there.
25 plus years coaching linebackers, and now has some new guys in the mix, right? It's the turnover of the roster every year. We had opportunity to speak with a Virginia Tech transfer in Kelly Lawson and an Oklahoma transfer in Lewis Carter. I asked each of them, what do they excel at? What are we going to see from these guys? Let's listen to them.
I feel like I'm physical, but I can get better with that. I've been getting better with talking with people beside me and stuff like that, my teammates, and just overall, I can say I can get better with just talking to the fronts and just overall controlling the defense. But I feel like I'm very physical.
I say one thing I excel at is really just my best trait is really just my versatility. Like, I wouldn't say I just excel at one particular thing. I really pride myself on being a Swiss Army knife type of guy. You need me down low, I'm in the trenches. You need me dropping 30 yards, 25 yards back, whatever you need to do. So I can't really pinpoint a big strength that really overwhelms everything else.
Had to adjust the camera angle and the mic positioning when Kelly Lawson came out. I said, how tall are you? Because he's listed on the roster at 6'4". He said 6'6". He's a tall linebacker, Adam.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think Coach D'Onofrio, hit all of the linebacker coach isms, plays behind his pads, his feet are underneath him, steady base. I think he hit all the same things, which mean the same thing. But listen, this is a position group, Trace, that's been much maligned over the past couple of seasons for UCF. And we've tried different configurations, different guys have come in, and it seems like linebacker just hasn't really ever gelled for UCF. So this is a group that, although it's a new coaching staff, it's going to be under the microscope. And obviously there's some names that are on this roster that feel like they have some potential. You see a guy like Kelly Larson, you see a guy like Lewis Carter, who have a ton of explosiveness and have the ability to make some plays. But this is a group that's going to be much maligned for UCF, and we'll have to see what they produce on the field. A couple guys we didn't hear from today, one being Andrew Harris, young linebacker, who's played pretty well this spring. Cole Kozlowski, again, the transfer from Colgate. They weren't there today. Hopefully they're ill and not something else. But this is I don't know. I don't want to say, because I'm probably saying this right now and they're in the portal as I'm talking here. But this is a group that's going to really have to gel. I think a lot of Knight fans have their eyes on how well this linebacker core will play this year.
Yeah, Andrew Cherico's working on the Thursday recap, and that will soon be out on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. Saturday, final practice. Get a media availability, possibly able to watch longer than that, not record. And then head coach Scott Frost wraps up spring on his media availability Saturday. So check out the most recent camp coverage on Suns YouTube. Let's continue the conversation about the Big 12, UCF football, and more. Let's welcome in a return guest, Paul Catalina from 365 Sports. Good enough to spend a little bit of time with us on Sons of UCF Live. Good to see you again, Paul.
Oh, great to be here, guys. Always love being on the show with you.
You know, I think this is your second appearance on the show, so that means we should, of course, retire your number because that is all the rage.
Yeah, I don't get what the fuss is about for Travis Hunter or Shadur, really, because he's the all-time leading passer. I think they should, let it breathe a little bit, but also, they've been letting about 7-8 guys breathe at Colorado and retiring numbers for 20, 30 years. So I get Dion hopping to the front of the line here. So I'm not mad at it, but it is kind of a weird deal that you would just say they're getting their jerseys retired next year. And that's, again, let it breathe a little, give them a chance to miss you.
All right. So we'll have you be on the show for the remainder of this time before we retire your shirt there.
Yeah, I can put it in the rafters here too.
No, where are you here? Where are you recording from? Is it
I'm in my house.
Loft or what are you?
Yeah. This is the upstairs of my house. I actually just redid this a couple months ago. Up here, redid it. I got a new desk, a little sit stand thing here. I'm hoping to get one of those under desk treadmill things to do my work and walk because I gotta shave some pounds off. It's wedding season and all. So, this was the actual original place in 2020 we started 365 Sports. So was right here. This is where we did the first episodes, which were all just audio. And then when we got the studio, we moved there, and we'll be moving to a new one here soon. Actually, I don't know when, but I think we're going to be getting a new studio. So,
what's
really
your favorite piece of memorabilia there behind you?
I have. Let's see. I got this picture from my late father. That's a Nolan. It's all the way at the end, but it's an autographed picture of Nolan Ryan when Bo Jackson, who's my favorite athlete of all time, and Nolan Ryan was his. Nolan is one of my favorites as well. But when he hit the ball back and hit him on the lip, and then he pitched bleeding, that's probably my favorite one. And then right to my right, I grew up. I grew up in your neck of the woods in Fort Myers, and we used to go to spring training all the time. And I have an autographed picture of Tommy Lasorda that my dad got, who is he loved. Back when the Dodgers were in Vero Beach in the good old days. So
Dodger Town.
Before they moved to Arizona and ruined everything. So
all right, Paul, let's talk a little ball here for a second. When I say UCF, and obviously you cover the Big 12, what do you think UCF, where's that program at in terms of the larger picture of the Big 12?
I think right now, the larger picture is probably not something they need to worry about. They need to just kind of worry about how can you reboot from what was very promising under Gus Malzahn. I mean, very promising, and then move into the conference and kind of hit the wall like you did. What is Scott Frost, going to do to recapture the magic he had before he left and went to Nebraska? I don't know. I worry about the quarterback situation. I was very bullish last year. I think even being on your podcast about hey, I think this is going to be a great thing. And then sometimes guys are just out of gas, and clearly that was what was going on there. So I worry about quarterback. I actually don't worry about a lot of the other positions because I think there is enough of a core that stayed. I think there's enough new blood to be exciting. But I do wonder about the quarterback because if you're at this point, you don't really know who it's going to be. I know that's going to make you get a little night sweats for a while.
Scott Frost hire, love it or hate it?
I don't hate it. I think it's Scott Frost and Rich Rodriguez live in the same category of trying to recapture something that maybe only they could do in the places that they are back at now. And Scott Frost didn't get dumber when he went to Nebraska. He made some mistakes. I think the biggest mistake he made at Nebraska was thinking that and buying into, and I think they fed this into his ego a little bit, that because he was Scott Frost, that followed up Tommy Frazier and was all that he was going to be the key to unlock Nebraska's past, that the magic was going to come back. And so I think he felt that a little bit. And there's a lot of pressure on that. I think that at UCF, what he's realized, and I heard this in his opening press conference, was like, we were really happy here as a family. Like, everything was great. Like, this was the place that we really liked. And then left to take that opportunity because he thought it was his dream job, and realized that maybe he was already at his dream job, and because sometimes you're where you are is not always worse than where you're going, or better than where you're going. So I think that a happy Scott Frost can be a very dominant coach in the Big 12. So I'll lean more towards love it than hate it. It's been a minute and things have changed because UCF is in a completely different conference than when he left before. So that's a new challenge, but he also walks into a UCF that is in that new conference, that does have an enthusiastic fan base, that's thrilled about being in that new conference. So the things he has to overcome, I think there's a group of people around the university that want him to succeed. So he's not going to really have to sell people on, hey, I can make this great. They knew that, like, you guys know that their best season ever, that they had when he was there. So I think that'll make it easier for him. And I think he really, truly does love living in Orlando. Is it right that, like, they're like, he's a big theme park guy? The kids are like big theme park people?
Yeah, if his whole family's not with him yet, the kids have still been in school and have not, been with him. And he's been up to his eyeballs in spring camp, as you know. Do you consider it a high risk hire by athletic director Terry Mahajan?
Actually, I think it's medium risk, because high risk would be trying to find somebody who is in Gus Malzahn's similar spot, right? Where you go out and say, okay, well, Gus coached in a national championship game. He won one as an offensive coordinator. He's a name that people know outside of the UCF circle, right? So we're going to go in and bring this, SEC credibility to Orlando. And so there's other guys out there like that you could go get. I think a higher risk is hiring the next Gus Malzahn, as opposed to someone that the fans really like, and with fundraising being such a key part of this, and NIL and all that, having someone there who you can kind of hit the ground running with, that the fans clearly missed and wanted back, I think that's a lower risk. I just think it's, again, as long as he understands, which I'm sure he does, he's a smart guy, that the UCF he left is not the UCF he's coming back to, but also that even though there might be, some down times as far as wins the last couple of years go, everything that was going well when he left is now better structurally at the university. So
what surprises you most about Gus Malzahn not making it work in Orlando?
Really, and this is not a knock. I mean, like, he's going to coach at FSU. I think Gus Malzahn is a brilliant football coach. I do think, though, that, like, when you got a guy who is a high school coach, then a college coach, and then the whole world changes, I don't think guys like him really, like, they want to coach. Like, if you're an offensive coordinator, you can call plays, and he likes recruiting. Like, he can go recruit and go sell, players on coming to the school. But I don't think Gus is much for how much does this guy cost and all that stuff. It's brain space that at this point in his career, which is pretty accomplished, that he just doesn't have. So, I mean, he's not poor. It's not like he needs to, make a ton of money. He's made a lot of money in his life, and he's still getting paid really well at FSU. So if you just want to coach ball, be a coordinator. If you want to be a CEO, then you be a head coach. And so I think now, in the days of where you need to be a CEO head coach, he's better off going to a place where he can call plays. As their coach, Florida State, Mike Norvell, needs to be more of a CEO right now than he was a year ago. And so, I'm not surprised. Like, I'm surprised that he didn't make it work maybe a little bit faster. But then with everything that changed, like, if I think about it and think about the times that I've spoken to Gus Malzahn, he's not a guy who is against what's going on, but I don't think he has the patience for it, because you have to have a lot of it to do this.
Paul, you mentioned NIL. Every day I read the internet and I read a story and I go, wait, what? Because it seems like something is changing every day. If I put you in charge of the NCAA for one day and you can make any changes you wanted to NIL, what would you do?
I would collectively bargain with the players. I would say, look, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do these, we're going to get a structure loosely based on, professional sports. And we will take the, if it's basketball, we're going to make a basketball. We're going to base it off what the NBA does and work it towards, what we do. And if it's football, we're going to base it off the NFL and work it towards what we do and make it work there. I'm all for NIL. I'm all for all of that. I just think that the other thing is, like, if you really want to teach these players about life, if you're really serious about that, one of the things that needs to be done is, like, look, you have a contract. It's okay if you want to leave a place if you're unhappy, but you signed a contract and there are penalties for that. Like, everybody says coaches can go wherever they want, but yeah, somebody has to pay a massive buyout, right? So, like, that's whether it comes out of the coach or the boosters are paying it, somebody's paying to break that contract. And so learning those things, I think, is important and being held to them. And I also think that if you have a situation where you can sign guys to a 2-year contract and you give them, maybe you get one free transfer and then you can have as many transfers as you want, but you're going to sit out at least part of the season. Like, maybe it's not a whole year, but if you say, look, I'm at UCF, I'd like to transfer. I'm going to Houston, and I've already been, at Memphis, and I go to Houston. Well, I'm sitting out 6 games. Like, you're not getting me until half the season, so I hope it's worth it for you, and maybe not lose a full season of eligibility. And so that's what I would do about NIL. Is I would make some sort of agreement so where we can be out of court. I mean, there's 1,000 things I would do, and it would probably not. I'd like go back to not being president the day after. Like, no, I'm not done. I'm not done. There's so many things we have to change. Take the university presidents out of this. They don't know about sports. They have no idea. Just send them the check and tell them to shut the hell up. Like, it's fine. If they played sports, if they know sports, they can come in. But if they ask a question like, what's a Nickelback? You're like, no, it's not a Canadian rock band. Get the hell out of here.
Well, Paul, you guys do a great job on your show of talking to fans, hearing from fans, right? And UCF and Baylor have something in common. I know a school that's close to where you are. We currently have 0 players on our basketball rosters. All of Baylor's team is left. All of UCF's basketball team is left. What do you say to the fans out there that are just frustrated with all this nonsense, with losing guys every year, guys leaving, guys going other places, interconference? What do you say to fans who are just frustrated with the system right now?
I think they have a right to be. I know football feels bad, but really, like, you can lose 25 players off a football roster and look back and go, oh, I wasn't really – he never played. That's fine. He can go, That, to me, has never been a big deal. Now, if you're in a Nico Iamaleava situation, then, yeah, that sucks. Like, that guy's going to be your starting quarterback. He leaves you in the lurch right before spring's over with no warning, and you're screwed. But if you lose backup players, I mean, sometimes it hurts. Most of the time, you just get another backup player, to fill that role, or a freshman or whatever. But for basketball, it really sucks because you have 105 roster limit in football. Basketball's, 13, 14 guys, and 3 of those guys are walk-ons. So, you've got an 8-man rotation or a 9-man rotation at best through all of it. And if all 9 of those guys leave every year, like, you are rooting. Jerry Seinfeld said this. You're rooting for laundry, and this is absolutely what you're doing. You are rooting for laundry because, oh yeah, this is great. Oh, this guy's here, and oh, he's awesome. Oh, he was great at Oregon State. Or you wait till you see this kid from Omaha. All right, all well and good, but I really don't know anything about him, and he's 1 year of eligibility, so better make it count. And it's really hard in the coaches to build that chemistry year in and year out. So I think for basketball, more than any other sport, it sucks the most because, you really have to try to burn out a whole football roster and send everybody like Dion did. Like, That's a lot of guys. It's like, hey, he brought back like 12, year one, and then went in the portal for everything else. But for football, like any coach comes in, if you are a decent coach, you can convince half the team to stay, so you don't have to lose that much. And then you go in and bring in 35 or 40 or your own guys, to fill out and change things up a little bit, but and make up for the guys who just have to go where the other coach is going. But for basketball, man, it really stinks because you can lose all of them. And look, Baylor knew Baylor was fine because they knew that VJ Edgecombe was going to leave. He's going to be a top 5 pick. They knew that he was going to be gone. They had guys like Roach and Nunn who were out of eligibility. At the beginning of the year, I think they thought it was going to be Langston's Love last year, no matter what. Josh Rajan, I think they were going to, kind of move to the portal anyway, and he got hurt. Norchad O'Meara only had 1 year left. The only one that they really it really hit him where it counts is Rob Wright, who went to BYU. And so they were planning on only having, 1 or 2 guys back from the roster and then filling the rest in with, Cameron Carr, who was there but sitting out. He was transferred from Tennessee, and Tunde Yesufu, who's coming in. But when Rob Wright left, then that changed everything. Now they're trying to find a point guard in the portal because they don't know who's going to start at point guard. So I think fans are right to be frustrated. I think if you remember, we've had this really great, cool period of college basketball, like the last 4 or 5 years, that has been like where players, like teams are getting more popular. The tournament is more popular than it's ever been. But in the period before that, there was a 10-year stretch that the NBA was absolutely killing college basketball because of the one and dones, and people weren't staying in college basketball. So NIL kind of helped college basketball in that you got to see guys stay. But if they're just going somewhere every other year, you can't follow a team. Like when I was a kid, I fell in with college basketball because I could watch UNLV, Michigan, and Duke play each other every year and do that little round robin. And like there was a story of, you remember that this happened in this game last year and all that. Now it's just not the case, and it loses its mystique. I mean, if Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were just going to different teams every year in the NFL, and we didn't have all those classic AFC playoff games, would we remember it as fondly, or would it just be something else? So I think they're right to feel upset, and there needs to be a change to it. And I don't think it's good for the play. Like, I don't think you're getting better playing at 4 colleges. Like, you'll get better. Like, if you get blocked at one and have to go to another to get more playing time, I'm fine with that. But by the time you've gone to your 3rd or 4th school, are you better? You're probably not better. Instead of staying there and learning a system and getting better at all the little things. I don't think it's better at all.
When we look back on Houston's basketball season, are we going to remember more than the end of that championship game against the Gators?
I hope so. I really hope so. I'm still mad about that. I'm still mad.
How did they not get a shot off? Nothing.
So I'm mad that they let him come back. Houston never does that. They never did that the whole year. The whole year they didn't do that. And sports is like that. It's funny. Like, you can be a team, and Houston played nearly perfect all year. They never made mistakes. They never made mistakes that killed them. We did high school football, the 3 of us together, for a long time, and now it's just Smokey starting this year. But we did it. The best team we ever did, Midway High School, in 2017, had Tanner Mordecai on the team, a Jackson player. They all played big time, like just tons of D1 guys all over the place. And they were like every break went their way all year long, every break. And then they got to the first quarter of the state championship game at AT&T Stadium, and all those breaks that didn't go their way for about 9 minutes, like all collapsed at once. It felt like that with Houston, where everything that didn't go wrong for them the whole season that they were able to just play so hard through, it just all happened in that last 5 minutes of the game. And a game that they could have really salted away, they didn't. And I hope that we remember how good the team was, because Kelvin Sampson is one of the truly great coaches in the game. And the fact that the title has eluded him is just so painful, for someone who just loves basketball and loves coaches who do it the right way. And Kelvin Sampson does it the right way.
Stack up the Big 12. You had UCF and the schools from the American plus BYU, and then the PAC schools coming in. Where do you think this conference is now in the national landscape?
I think it's easily the third best conference, and I could make an argument that most years in football it's going to be better. I'll just say it's going to be better most years in football, top to bottom, and more entertaining than the Big Ten will ever be. The Big Ten will probably always be top heavy. And the Big 12, I mean, every single year, like, okay, we might think that UCF could finish towards the end, but every year we're wrong. Arizona State was that last year. You know, I think Oklahoma State's not going to be very good. But talking to Brandon Marcello today, he said, you know, he's hearing they look really good. Like, the team looks a lot better than it did last year at the same time. So, heck, I don't know. And the way things change so rapidly, I think the Big 12 is top to bottom, week in and week out, the most entertaining league in that most of the games are going to be close. Most of the games are going to mean something all year long. And that's what we want in college football. Now, do they have, you know, is the game going to be Oklahoma versus Tennessee? No, it's not going to be two teams in 100,000 seat stadiums. But there's really good fan bases. Like, the Bounce House is a great place. BYU and Utah are great places. Colorado's hopping now. You know, Tech's a great place. Oklahoma State's an unbelievable place to watch games. Iowa State's passionate as all get out. Cincinnati probably doesn't get enough credit for what they are. West Virginia, you know, they had to beg them to stop burning furniture. So this is a great fan-based league, right? So I think it will always, you know, kind of have to run in that third position. But I think if you really look at it from 1 to 16, compared to what the Big Ten will be, you know, 1 to 18, it's way, way better. And the ACC's history is troubled with teams believing that football is more important. And even though you can keep saying it, like, you're never going to get, you know, some of those schools to go like, okay, I get it now. You know, the fans don't care as much as they do about basketball, and that's fine. But, like, that's where the ACC is going to be, is where the Big 12's on a different track there. And will they ever catch the SEC? No, but I do think that, you know, when you have a league, and I don't mean to knock these schools, but, like, Indiana's had one good year in my lifetime, or two if you count Antoine Randall L. You know, Rutgers is nothing. Northwestern's, you know, like, they don't have a great history. Purdue's struggled, you know. So for the like Drew Brees is the best Purdue seasons I can remember in my lifetime. So outside of, you know, USC, Oregon, Washington, Ohio State, Michigan, and like Nebraska's not been great, but I hope that they get back. You know, most everybody else is the same middle tier that anybody other league has. So, you know, they've got 6 or 7 really good brands there. The Big 12, I mean, what's top to bottom in the Big 12? Like, bad at everything, a total waste of your time to watch any of their sports. No one. Like, everybody's got something, and everybody in football has shown that, like, they can, you know, pop up and compete. Heck, even Arizona, like, they've had their moments. You know, Washington went and got their coach, for crying out loud. So, like, yeah, let's I think that's the thing I think, to me, is the most important about the Big 12 for people to remember.
When you said USC, Oregon, Washington, of course I forgot that they.
Yeah, I do almost every day, like almost every day.
What's going on at 365?
We are, you know, we're off tomorrow for Easter, so same old 3 to 6 every single day. My show, The Triple Option, is going to go through some changes this summer and come back with a new name and a bit of a new format and a new time. Really excited about it, to announce it, like, to show people what that's going to be. We just got bought by a new company, Rogue Media, and they're giving us the resources to do a lot of cool things. And so stay tuned, because you know, bigger, better, faster, stronger is coming at 365 Sports. We're really excited about it. We've got some great partners in Rogue. We had great leadership at Sigum 365, but we took each other as far as we could take each other. And we still have a great relationship with those guys. But it was just time to move on and, try to grow the brand a little bit more and take this thing bigger. So all that's coming. And, we've got some other interesting things. Like I'm launching – it's soft to launch the Cowboys channel. So if you're a Cowboys fan, we'll be doing some content post the draft and then on through the season. So we've got a lot going on. So just look us up, 365 Sports on YouTube and across all social medias. We're even on TikTok now.
Oh.
And I don't know. I really don't know how TikTok works. I don't. You could not. Like I could sit in a class for a month and I'd still be like, but why?
Well, you all do great work as it is. Looking forward to the changes and the bigger and better that are coming. Paul Catalina, thank you so much for being with us on Sons of UCF Live, talking a little Big 12.
All right. Anytime, guys.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Paul said something I thought was interesting there when he was talking about Oklahoma State and the conversation Brandon Marcel was saying they're better than they were. Adam,
Yes.
Is UCF football better than it was?
Oh, wow.
Or should we save that for around the game?
Yeah, we got a lot of summer.
It's an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a
is
really
the product
interesting
that
question.
we've seen over 13, soon to be 14 practices, 2 open practices. I know we don't get a lot of availability. The clips that we've seen and you've heard the interviews. Is this a better team?
I'll say this. It feels better. I have no idea if they're actually better, but it feels better. So because I think it feels better, I'll say it's better. But I have no earthly idea what's going to happen when the football's on the ground and a team in another colored jersey is across the line from us.
Yeah, and when these preseason polls come out, UCF will be in that bottom 4, no doubt, right? No one really knows, as was exemplified by Arizona State. But with the turnover and rosters that occur across the college landscape, you really don't know what you're getting. I mean, again, if Gus hits on KJ Jefferson, maybe it's not a 10-win team, but it's probably not a 4-win team. You go through 4 quarterbacks. By the way, EJ Colson, you remember him?
I do.
Has entered the transfer portal, as has Quan Lee. Remember him?
Highly
touted wide receiver.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He was foreshadowing there being in the moving business because he was going to be moving from school to school. But not a long cup of coffee there for EJ Colson and Purdue. But UCF going through 4 quarterbacks a season ago. NFL draft a week from tonight. At the field house today, Andrew Jericho cutting his on cams for his camp report. And we saw working out in there, Mac McWilliams and BJ Adams.
Nice.
We're doing some drills and running around and getting some work in. And what's your guess going into the NFL draft? You feel good about RJ Harvey being maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th? I've seen him mentioned in those circles.
I do. I don't know how to approach this conversation without sounding a little bit like I know stuff, but there's a popular NFL insider who DMs the Sons of UCF account. You have access to see this now, Trace. And
I don't
look
at the messages,
but you have access to see who this is. And he and I have messaged back and forth. And he told me that he thinks RJ Harvey is going to be the steal of the draft. That some team is going to take RJ Harvey and he will be the steal of the draft. I think there's a lot of comparisons to Tampa Bay Buccaneers rookie running back Bucky Irving, who seemingly came out of nowhere and became a big cog in that offense. So this insider, I don't know if he wants this out there, so I won't say his name, but he believes that he's heard from people RJ Harvey will be the steal of this draft.
We have a week before this draft, so we'll have some fun maybe online. But who's this year's Jacksonville Jaguar pick of a UCF player? Maybe an undrafted free agent.
Jacksonville Jaguar pick,
right? Because they always got at least one.
It's a new coach now. It's a new coach. I'm gonna give me Kobe Hudson. Give me Kobe Hudson.
Interesting. Well, let's play around with that. All right, joke time.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, what happens if you tell a duck an Easter joke?
I don't know.
They'll quack up. You put me through this what's in a box. It's torturous for me at the
I'm just
end of
curious.
every
Do
show.
you have a book with this information? Like how do you acquire these? Okay. Is this how you text it, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. That explains.
Look these things up.
Stuff.
We began the show talking about football in the portal, kind of overshadowing that to some extent because of the names is men's basketball. You mentioned it in the conversation with Paul. Ain't nobody left with any minutes, any points, anything. I was hoping this wasn't going to happen, but Mustafa Sham, it looks like he's going to be entering the portal, as is Jordan Ivy Curry, though I'm not even sure how he has any eligibility left. But you hate to see Mustafa go in there because that would have been a piece to build around in this coming season.
Yeah, look, I knew this was going to come up, and I was trying to find a way to talk about this and say something that's going to make Night Nation feel better about this, and it's going to be okay. This one's just frustrating because you had a good player, kind of a hometown kid to some respects, who by all accounts, was somebody who was growing and developing, and we got a chance to see him at the very early stage. And the hope was you'd see him kind of develop for a couple of years and move on. And when he didn't enter right away, I think there was some glimmer like, oh, he's staying, right? And then all kinds of crazy things start flying around about what's happened and who's involved, who's in his ear, all the stuff that's going on. And it just makes, at the end of the day, say, this is just, as Paul said, this is just frustrating as a Knight fan. You want to root for these guys. You want to root for these players. And you hear all this crazy stuff. And every time you hear something, I find myself lately being like, what? Oh, yeah, I guess so. And nothing really surprises you anymore. Nothing really shocks you. If it's, the way that schools are talking to kids, how quickly kids are in the portal, the do not contact tag, which would seem antithetical to the portal, but what do I know? Like all that stuff just feels just really weird. And here's the problem that I came up with, Trace. Like I thought about this for a second. Last night I was, sitting here, I was disappointed about the Mustafa news. And I thought to myself, like, man, something's got to change. I'm here banging the kitchen. We got to make a change, Trace. Something's got to change. And I thought to myself, if this was the NBA, we'd go, Adam Silver's got a problem with his league. He's got to fix it. You're a baseball guy. Rob Manfred's got a problem. They're losing viewers. They got to fix it. And I thought to myself, all right, basketball's got a problem. Who the hell's going to fix it, though? There's nobody there, right? And that's the more distressing thing is at least if there was other avenues, you'd say maybe Adam Silver will sit down and think about this. Maybe Roger Goodell and the owners will sit down. Who's the person going to fix this? There's nobody inside. We're going to rely on Congress to come up with some sort of a great plan to make all this better. And I don't know, man, like that just feels like a Hail Mary in some respects. So that's the more frustrating thing is it keeps happening, but there's nothing on the horizon. There's no hope that you say to yourself, someone's going to step in, the adults in the room are going to step in and make this different. I don't know who that adult is. And I don't know when that change comes.
Doesn't seem like anytime soon. It seems destructive. I like what Paul said. Who gets better on their fourth team, right? You're changing offensive style. You're changing habits. You got a coach in your ear telling you to try this. I mean, who's getting better, not improving through a system? But the portal giveth, the taketh away. And in UCF's case now, they got to fill out a roster. What do they need? They need 15 players. They're maybe halfway there. Andrew Cherico has been covering men's basketball for the Sons of UCF, and he's pieced together who the Knights have acquired and gives us a little more insight on those. Let's hear from Andrew.
Andrew Cherico here for the Sons of UCF. The new age of the transfer portal is in full effect and is currently hitting UCF men's basketball, which will really feel the change not having a long-term returner like Darius Johnson. Along with DJ, there will be zero scoring production returning to UCF from last season, with all contributing on-the-court starters and bench players currently in the transfer portal. We have already seen players who stepped up in contributing last season and in the college basketball crown. Nils Mahovsky commit to Wofford and Tyler Hendricks commit to Utah Valley. And if that doesn't hurt, what was thought to be a long-term building piece and future of the program, 7'2" young freshman center Mustafa Chiam is reportedly planning to enter the transfer portal. With all those transfers, a team still needs to be built by Johnny Dawkins and his coaching staff because the season doesn't slow down for anybody. Let's go back to November 27, 2024, when UCF men's basketball beat Milwaukee 84-76. Johnny Dawkins possibly saw two future talents who are now committed to UCF. Starting off with Jermichael Stillwell, who is currently ranked the highest transfer for UCF this offseason. He is a 6'8", 225-pound forward who excels on the boards and has a double-double machine, averaging 13 points per game and 10 rebounds a game last season. Now his teammate from Milwaukee, 6'2" point guard Themis Folks. He is a shifty playmaker who averaged 14 points per game and 6 assists per game last season. Now let's move on to guard Riley Kugel, who is tied with Jermichael Stillwell in transfer ranking. Kugel is a 6'5" guard who is a very strong finisher and plays solid on-ball defense. Now, while Mustafa Chiam was looked at as the future, there is already another big in town. 7'2" center, Ole Miss transfer, John Bull. Bull has a chance to be a dominant rim runner and have an active defensive presence around the paint. Don't expect the stretch 5, a big style from him, because he is a paint-dominant player. More acquisitions that the Knights have made are 6'9" forward Georgetown transfer Jordan Burks, who is a physical player and can get dirty down low, as well as transfer guard George Beal Jr., 6'4", and shot 40% from 3 last season and can let it fly from anywhere. And last but not least, high school commit 6'2" guard Tanner Jones, currently committed to UCF for 2025, had offers from Arizona State and many more schools. A common theme with these additions is that they all have a strong emphasis on defense, something that UCF quite frankly struggled with last season, and I believe that Johnny Dawkins is trying to build that back into the UCF culture and the UCF mindset of playing hard, gritty, physical basketball. As of April 17th, 2025, and these days you really never know, so this can be old news by tomorrow, those 7 newcomers plus returners, Elijah and Pooh, currently build a roster size of 9 players. It takes 15 to build a team. What are your thoughts on the current state of men's basketball? Be sure to stay tuned with transfer portal updates, as I'm Andrew Cherico for the Suns.
UCF.
Yes, I cut Andrew off. Sorry, Andrew.
Dirty down low. That may be the best writing that young Mr. Cherico has done. I like that.
I need more details.
I like that phrase. UCF Sports information confirming that assistant coach Mamadou Inja, who is rumored to be a part of a package deal for Mustafa Chum, is no longer on the coaching staff. They wouldn't elaborate any further than that, but he no longer a part of the coaching staff. But don't be surprised if that pairing doesn't end up together at their next stop. Let me ask this, as I asked about football, is this a better roster than it was last year? Do you like these pieces? Obviously, you need to fill out this roster more, but when you compare it to the acquisitions a season ago, we know how they turned out. Are you encouraged by what you see here?
Look, I think you can talk yourself into any level of encouragement, right? I think the 2 kids from Milwaukee, we saw them play. They seem like really solid players. I was on a show last night where a quote was made by an unnamed intern of ours, Trace, that said, "Thank God we have John Bull." And I don't think anyone's ever said, "Thank God we have John Bull" before. So that's kind of where we are right now. Look, you got to hope that UCF is going to have to continue to play money ball and sort of play the angle of we have to find the guys who are kind of rough around the edges, who just want an opportunity, who are going to come here and play and fight and play hard. And you hope that this is that group of players, but I don't think any of us are going to know until they're on the basketball court. And the problem is there's going to be no continuity. There's no hangover from last year. And so maybe that's good news. Maybe that's bad news, but I don't think anyone will know until a ball dribbles on the ground sometime in November.
Yeah, a week ago, it was a question we had in the mailbag about the turnover in rosters. I don't remember which sport it was. And I've been struggling with the concept, to be honest with you. I've always felt making that connection with a Darius Johnson or others in other sports has always been important for me. And I obviously have the opportunity to speak with players in the interview situation and media availabilities. But that's always been important for me. And I don't think of it the same way. I root for the Cubs. I root for Orlando City and MLS. I accept that there's going to be some roster turnover every year, not to this extreme, though. And I'm trying to get my arms around what I'm willing to accept to continue to root for laundry, as Paul said. I haven't figured out my comfort level. I really enjoyed the conversations with these 2 linebackers today, and they're new to UCF, and we'll see how they perform and they play. I really appreciate that we've gotten a mix of new players because, heck, how many returning players could we have talked to during spring camp anyway? And I think I'll ultimately land that, I'm pro UCF. I support UCF, and I am going to root for black and gold and hope that the connections that we make over the course of a season are meaningful with the athletes and that they perform well and lead UCF to success on the courts and fields of play. And I guess that's the best we can hope for in this current landscape. But the 4-year guy in any sport or 4-year young lady, that may be a thing of the past.
It's a challenge. It's frustrating. I think there are times where, you and I talk off air sometimes, like you're covering a guy and he's gone the next day. And it just sort of feels like, college sports has really turned into something completely different than what we're used to. That doesn't mean it's worse, although I think a lot of people would say that it is. It's just different. And we all have to adjust to that one way or the other, whether we like it or not. And that's the thing I'm having a hard time with, is just adjusting at this point. I think there's some easy changes that can be made. But again, I ask, who are the leaders stepping up, making these changes, right? We talk about pro sports. You're a free agent every couple of years with your contract, maybe every once a year. College guys are free agents every 3 months, every 4 months. There's another free agent. It's free agency period. That's just not sustainable from an economic perspective and from a fan base standpoint. But again, I ask, who's going to step up and say we need to change this? And before it changes, who amongst us in the UCF community, we just don't have the dollars to compete at the level of some of these other schools. So what are we to do? All we can do, to your point, is someone's going to wear a UCF jersey. I'm going to turn on a television someplace, and I'm going to hope that person plays well and that team wins. And that's really all we can do at this point in time. But it is frustrating. You think you have a team. You think you have people you want to root for. You want to go buy a jersey, for crying out loud. And I think it's one of the funniest things that's gone underreported is UCF has had a bunch of different, basketball players, and they're taking pictures of their time on visits. They're all wearing the numbers guys wore last year because they have no other jerseys. So we're just recycling the number 4, the number 7, the number 52 now. It's just a recycling of jersey numbers. And I get it's frustrating, but what I try to remind myself is when I walked onto campus in Orlando, I decided to be UCF Knight. I will continue to be UCF Knight, and I will root for those who join me in that quest. If you are no longer a UCF Knight, then I will bid you adieu and wish you well, but I will root for the people who have the same school that I have on my degree until they're no longer part of my school, which comes more than I would, probably hope so.
We get a short window to cover practice. Out at practice Thursday, former UCF head coach George O'Leary and former UCF running back Latavius Murray. If the opportunity had allowed for a greater conversation, I know what George would have said about the transfer portal and paying players. Been curious to hear from Latavius about that, but both of them out at practice. And, you think about what are the future Hall of Fame classes going to look like 20, 30 years from now, and what jersey numbers are being retired. When you've got one and dones year after year. Our Jeff Allen contributes to our Big 12 coverage. Also, to your point, it was in conversation with former Knight Mike O'Donnell. We forget he transferred in, right? We think of him as a Knight.
What's funny is we are really mad about UCF basketball. How does Milwaukee feel about UCF that we just took 2 of their
Well, we're the farm club for a certain class of power schools. And I guess, when you're signing a contract to play a game in Orlando in the non-conference schedule, just know that UCF is scouting your roster because we're going to pluck from those in the mid-majors, right? That's the way it's just going to go. But find that conversation, Jeff Allen and Mike O'Donnell, right now on Sons of UCF's YouTube channel. We began the show talking about baseball. Baseball drops the game to number 15 TCU, 4-12 now. They're in the back half of the schedule, the 30-game conference schedule. If they don't get it together, and I don't see how with the schedule that lies ahead that they will, they are in danger of not making that Big 12 conference championship because those bottom teams do not qualify, and UCF is squarely in the mix there. Friday at 6, Saturday at noon, Sunday no game because of Easter. They're at Florida Atlantic on Tuesday. Softball, believe this or not, this was a 0-0 game going into the 7th, and then UCF gave up a 7th spot to number 21 Oklahoma State. UCF was being no-hit at a point there until they got a hit. I think it was in the 6th, but it was a well-played game through 6, and then things did not go well for the Knights. They dropped that to Oklahoma State. They are back in action Friday at 7, Saturday at noon. Also no game on Sunday because of Easter. They're at Stetson next week. All right. Has this come out now? I haven't even seen the Pegasus podcast. Of course I haven't, but I haven't seen a mention of it. Did they record a show?
They did record a show, an audio episode released this morning. The video will come out tomorrow. So the video has not been
That's
seen
why
yet.
I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
the video will be out tomorrow. They had some scheduling stuff and whatnot. So video coming tomorrow, audio available now. And this week's listen, Trace, Christian and I have been talking, and I'm not accusing you or performance enhancing, but somehow you were
Performance
really
enhancing.
good at this game. And Christian
You
and I are
said to me when
baffled.
we started this, you got a 50-50 shot. I mean, some weeks
I
I'm
did.
just guessing.
we are baffled at how you're pulling this off week in and week out. And so we've been chatting on the side of how do we work this out. And one thing I discovered, perhaps it's me. I'll look in the mirror. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's the way I
It's your reading?
phrase the reading. So this week, the reading is done by an AI bot. So no inflection, nobody. This is the reading as given to you by an AI bot that appeared by somebody on this week's Pegasus podcast.
My brain immediately went to a monitor lizard, which is not where I was going with this at all.
I'll give you that again.
Was it a lizard? A lizard? What now?
I'll give you that again.
My brain immediately went to a monitor lizard, which is not where I was going with this at all.
Would you like it one more time?
Yes, because
My
I'm
brain
fascinated.
immediately went to a monitor lizard, which is not where I was going with this at all.
All right.
A
So
monitor
you're not getting
lizard?
anything out of me. This is what I got for you.
This is the strangest turn in this particular game that we play. I will go to Christian for this one.
For some reason, I said that my brain immediately went to a monitor lizard, which is not where I was going with this at all.
It's unbelievable. This is just, I don't even understand.
I got a 50-50 on that.
You have a 50-50.
Yeah.
What was see, and analyzing this, and I know the
I
answer.
remember the first one when it was just a screen, was just angry, and I went, "That's Christian."
Yeah.
He's trying to disguise.
Is it the oddity of the word choicing there? Is it the topic of
lizard.
like?
Yeah, what's going to happen next week is you're just going to hit the AI bot and it's going to go the. And I'm going to be like, come on, just the.
I mean, listen, we'll get you at least 3 words. I mean, we have integrity around here at the Sons of UCF.
Name that tune where they go do 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 do. Yeah,
at least 3 words. That we're going to get you at least 3 words.
Pegasus podcast
available tomorrow. Sons of UCF YouTube
Friday on the Sons of. I got some stuff to do this weekend to catch up. I missed Jeff Allen's interview with Mike O'Donnell. I got some stuff to do. You'll find that. Now, speaking of what's going on in UCF world, let's check out some news and notes.
It's not just a haircut. It's an experience. Welcome to Sons of UCF Live. Good night. Charge on.
Here's the problem, Trace.
Where did you? I was not anticipating that one.
Hold on a second. I went through the Rolodex and I tried to find people who still go to UCF or who didn't leave UCF that I could use for that sounder. We're running short, my friend. Coaches, players, we are running out. And I hit the old file treasure trove of Monster the Barbers. And so a little different twist this week. I'm running low on people who still go to UCF that I can use in that particular segment. So
we had some experiences with Terry Mahajer through the years.
I got a few that I forgot we had. There's a couple that I was like, I don't even remember Cole Schneider and Monster the Bobber together, but we have them at some point, Trey. So we'll probably have everybody.
Why do you put all those together? That could be a show we release over this summer. 22nd ranked women's tennis wins the Big 12 regular season. UCF's first Big 12 championship. Everybody had women's tennis being the first Big 12 championship. Men's tennis 18th in the rankings. Men's and women's tennis in the Big 12 championship over the weekend out at Baylor. Rowing checks in at 15. Women's golf finishes 9th in the Big 12 championship. 31st ranked Knights now wait to find out if they will make their 6th straight NCAA regional selection show is next week. Women's soccer is out with its 2025 schedule. They open at UAB on August 14th. Boy, that's just a couple months away when the first sport, they're usually the first one. Home opener August 17th versus FAU. Big 12 opener September 18th versus West Virginia. And $14.8 million, that's how much UCF brought in, and their day of giving, 63% increase over last year. I was really surprised by that because to populate our world, you'd think everybody was down on UCF and athletics and the university. So, hey, somebody's upbeat and positive. They opened their wallets amidst everything going on around us in the world and contributed to UCF. So that's what's going on News and Notes. Now, this is usually where we play our Around the Kingdom clip, but I went to the Magic playoff game on Tuesday because there's no bigger Magic fan than me.
I was gonna say, I know you were a noted Magic.
Nobody.
Aficionado.
It was an enjoyable game. So schedules just didn't sync up. So we, took a week off, and that was the return of, to your point, with the aforementioned Jeff Allen. It's roster changing season for UCF is the title of the show, and an all-star panel: Chris Boyle, Christian Simmons, Andrew Cherico, joining Jeff Allen for that one. And we have a clip.
And that is the cautionary tale of UCF baseball I would like to speak on. UCF baseball, you may be familiar with them. They are the baseball team for this university. Rich Wallace is in his second year as UCF baseball's head coach. Last season, 37 wins, surprise tournament team. Everyone was happy. Joe Girardi was a distant memory, as was Greg Lovelady. This year, not so much. 20-16 currently. Wheels fell off very quickly. They had some good wins early, and they've just collapsed. They had a 16 losing streak at one point. It's just been really, really rough, and they can't do much of anything in conference. And I am here to ask you this. What changed? What changed from last season to this season for the UCF baseball team that could lead to them from being the surprise darling team of UCF athletics in the Big 12 era to being this? And I've looked at what changed. I've looked at the differences in last year's team to this year's team, and one thing stands out above all. They added gold jerseys.
He's not wrong.
This is.
Were you expecting some eloquent analysis of the baseball?
I've not seen the show. I don't know what all the topics were. I noticed some comments of people who have already watched, to your point, and there's a mention of Olive Garden breadsticks.
Listen, thinking, that got out of control.
Where do we go from baseball to breadsticks?
That got out of control. That got out of control in a hurry. Just watch that and enjoy. But you were expecting something different?
Well, you started. It was all serious.
It sounded good, right? Yeah.
Yeah. To your point, right now it says YouTube. Hey, Adam, what is the Easter Bunny's coffee order?
Black.
Eggs Presso. I love the holiday jokes. It is that time again. Time for the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
So it's a mailbag. So what?
So what? Do you know whose mailbag that is?
It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
Has Brian resurfaced now? The tax deadline has passed?
Brian is back in the group chats. I think he's back amongst the living. So I believe he's back. I don't think he's ready for public consumption just yet, but I believe we have proof of life of one Brian W. Peterson.
That's good. It'd be good to hear from Brian again. Jeb Shred on Blue Sky. Where are we most in need of a dude? That is a good question from Jeb Shred. In other words, what position group could most use a game changer from the portal? Wide receiver, linebacker, quarterback, DB, special teams? Are we riding with the dudes we got? I like that question, though. I like that term. Now, last year with Gus, it was he's a guy.
He's a real guy.
But I like this. You've heard coaches talk about playing violent, right? That's part of the character.
Yeah.
Changeover on this team is having some dudes.
Yeah.
Where do you think Day Farmer goes down? We don't really know what we have at wide receiver before Day, so we can't miss Day. We never had Day. Where do we need a dude?
You know where we need a dude, Trace? Punter. I don't think we have enough on the special team side right now. You got to flip the field at times, Trace. Who's punting the football if we need to?
This is where you're putting your dude dollars.
I think I've heard the kicking situation seems a little suspect. There's a little challenge.
There's three people in the room.
We need more. I need dudes. I need dudes who I can know that will roll out there and bang me a coffin corner punt. A dude I can count on to get me a 40-plus, field goal kick. Those are the dudes I need, Trey. So give me the dudes who kick the football. You laugh now. When we lose again by 3. When we lose again because we have blocked punt, because there's no punter and we just snap it to nobody.
What would Scott Frost knowing about losing a game by 3?
What would he know about an onside kick that doesn't work? When we snap the punt to nobody in particular, then you all can come laugh at me at that point. Give me a punter dude.
Give me a violent dude on the defense. I want more violent dudes on defense.
You're so violent, Trace. Yikes.
Yeah, no, we need more violence. At UCF _Zach recruiting stars aren't everything, but for all his issues, Gus did show UCF could attract blue chip players. That is certainly the case. Early recruiting from Frost team seems to be on par or worse than 2016. Hey, you wanted to go back to that era of Scott Frost, so we go back to the recruiting level too. If recruiting doesn't improve, does this increase pressure to produce results on the field? Yep. But how important is this recruiting if you're going to turn over your roster every year? Are we overemphasizing recruiting? It's not what it used to be.
Yep.
Right.
With all due respect to UCF Zach, who I like a lot, and we have a lot of good banter back and forth, he makes one assumption here. He makes the assumption that recruiting stars are getting equal results. I don't think we saw that under Gus Malzahn. Here's a couple of stats I tried to pull quickly. In 2013, we had 15 high school recruits. So I assume when he's talking blue chips, he's talking high school. 15 high school recruits in 2023. 8 of them are already gone. Only one of them actually went up in conference, and that's Randy Pittman to FSU. Everybody else went down a level either to a group of 5 school or an FCS school. 2022, 11 of those 17 high school guys are gone. There are 4 of them who went to schools that are kind of at the power level: Iowa State, Michigan State, Arkansas, and Indiana. So I would argue that, yeah, while we got stars in, clearly that didn't translate on field. The results weren't there. So maybe stars just aren't the thing we need to worry about right now. And we need to worry about fit, scheme, determination, and the ability to come in and be coachable. Maybe that's what we need to worry about and worry less about stars right now. So I'm not saying that you don't need blue chip guys, but we had some under Gus. They don't really get us anywhere.
You know, it was interesting hearing from the offensive linemen following the Friday night open practice. These guys spoke openly about walking on eggshells. They like the open door policy of Scott Frost.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they were very candid interviews. And when you ask about Frost, faces light up. When you ask about Zach Duvall, the strength and conditioning coach, there hasn't been one guy, right, that has shied away from talking about how they get pushed and feel better about that experience. So, you know, they're talking about the character and the culture and the makeover. Remember, the guys that we talked about in 2016, 17, they weren't dudes. They weren't guys until they became the players that we fell in love with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's an intangible factor that cannot be charted when you're doing recruiting, and that's how much a kid's going to try, how coachable he is, and sort of what potential looks like. And I think can Frost and that staff tap back into that? There's no guarantee, but you hope that's the model that they want to use and leverage going forward. But again, Gus found a bunch of talents that came in, and Trace, who was the Clemson DB that came in that we're really excited about? Was a 4-star kid. Remember his name? You sure don't. His name was Fred Davis. I think he was Jacksonville State.
Yeah, I interviewed him.
I saw that on my clips as I was trying to pull people that I
did. I get Fred to say thanks for
that I'm like, no one's going to know who the hell Fred Davis is anymore, right? So I think that's
sounds like a game. Name that player.
I actually might do that. And when the summer we have nothing going on, I may pop somebody on screen and ask you who the hell this person is.
At Snackworth1, that seems like a new entrant into the mailbag. Rumors that Tennessee's now former quarterback Nico. How do you say his last name? That's Nico.
Iamalava.
Okay. Well, could land at UCF cheap. No.
Rumors are he's going to UCLA. I don't know if I've seen it aimed.
That's where careers go to die.
Colin Cowherd reported that he was going to UCLA, though that hasn't been officially put out there. I think
would
people
you want
are looking,
him?
I don't think so. I mean,
this is a character thing.
Let me caveat that, though. So he obviously was at Tennessee with one Mackenzie Milton, who is now the UCF's quarterback coach. If UCF took him in, my assumption would be that Mackenzie green lights this and says, this is a kid that I think we can use. I would trust Mackenzie's assessment and analysis of this, but I don't think he's coming here. I don't think he's coming here. I don't think the money's anywhere close to it.
No.
And so I don't think that's a thing. But if Mackenzie said, yeah, I want this kid on my roster, I want him in my room, I would give KZ the benefit of the doubt.
Robert, 2 letters, 2 words. Which team fell apart quicker, 2024 football or 2025 baseball? Football. Yeah, football. KJ Jefferson was a flop, and it was all downhill from there. At Golden Knight _2 with the world of college sports changing weekly. What decade do you think was more enjoyable as a fan? 70s to 85 FBS FCS split, 90s Bowl Alliance, 2000s to 2010s BCS, 2020s CFP and NIL. Certainly not this current era. So that one I'm going to strike. I don't know if I know anything about 70s college football, but
UCF barely played in the 70s, so that's a challenge. I'm an old head. I'm gonna go with the kind of the late 90s into the kind of mid 2000s, because that was the time where UCF was kind of up and coming. We were trying to become something. All of a sudden, oh, we didn't win a game. Look at that. And then we hired George O'Leary, and all of a sudden we're getting better, and the little team that could, and new stadium on campus. There was such an excitement about kind of being the underdog, the gritty team that maybe had a chance to kind of break that glass ceiling. And that was a fun era of college football. You got to know guys who decided to come to UCF, like a Brandon Marshall or a Mike Sims Walker or a Clayton Gathers or Terrence Plummer, guys that you just loved being here. And so I'm going to go back to that era just because it just felt like a more pure time when UCF was trying to become, I think, what they thought they would be today.
What'd you make of the picture of George O'Leary and Scott Frost together out at the practice?
I think that's interesting. That's really interesting, right? Because
who replaced George O'Leary
Scott Frost, right? And there was a lot of talk about a culture change, very similar. I mean, listen, if you just woke up in a coma and you were like, wait, what? This is what happened in 2016 as well, right? Culture change, reset things, love on these kids. I did this thing recently, Trace, where I went back through some of the archive of Sons of UCF interviews, which God almighty, there's a lot of those, by the way. And, I was listening to one of the very early ones from a player who I won't name just yet. And they were talking about how like Frost and that staff came in and they loved on the players and, and they kind of gave them some confidence and they put their arm around him and let him make mistakes. And George had to hear some of that stuff, right? Like that could not have passed his eardrums. And so it's interesting to see those two. And I would have paid a couple of bucks to hear what that conversation was like.
Not to give you more work, but I do really think all that stuff in the archives, like a new edition of a book where the new forward, I think it'd be interesting to hear you, with some of your recollections and a new tag where you say where that player is now and what they're doing. I think that'd be an interesting.
Listen, you may be foreshadowing some stuff. I finally sat down and started to listen. I think you and I have had this conversation before. I did the math. And I don't think I'm being facetious. We have, I think, a little over 5,000 hours of interviews. Like 5,000. We did like 200 shows of interviews. Most of the UCF shows that Mike and I did are like an hour-long interviews. Yeah. We have, and maybe that math didn't work out when I do it in my head there, but we had
200 times one.
We have
no wonder you're questioning that
a lot
19 weeks until the start of the
3,000. We have a lot of hours of interviews. So at some point, I will sit down and try to go through all that and figure out what I can do.
Yeah. UCF guy 1203 on Blue Sky. I saw in a mock draft, RJ Harvey may be drafted by the Cowboys. How you feeling about that? You take him as a Cowboy?
I would take that in a heartbeat. Listen, the Cowboys running game is nothing. Rico Dowdle no longer a part of the running game. And so we certainly need guys back there. I know what RJ brings to the table. So I would take RJ Harvey all day, every day, and I would do it again on Sunday.
At Black Gold _ how much is UCF spending on new grass and shouldn't those funds be spent on IL? Instead, P.S. This is the worst time of the year to install turf. Too hot, no rain. It is hot. There is no rain. I think they missed an opportunity to sell off this grass. I think people would have bought some this grass. And it's just in a big pile out in the parking lot. So maybe
are you encouraging?
Put it in my trunk and make me an offer.
Are you encouraging nefarious activities here? I agree. I think they probably could have sold chunks of this grass. And I think people would have made purchases. I think people would have resettled their lawn. If they could have gotten like sheets of this stuff, I guarantee you there's somebody out there who would resettle their lawn with this.
Yeah, I can't speak to when the timing.
I also don't know what it costs.
Right.
I have no idea what it costs. I don't know what the need for it was. I assume either there was
fatigue.
Some sort of a
turf
fatigue.
It may be fatigue.
Drainage. I don't know what causes this issue in sports. They were talking about this new tough turf they got. Like anyone knows what the hell that is, by the way. And so I can't wait to see the new turf in the bounce house. But yes, I agree. They probably could have done something to offload some of the other stuff.
So if things don't go well this season, Christian Simmons can blame the grass instead of the gold.
It's natural grass, right? We're not doing this. We're not doing
no.
Okay.
No, natural grass.
All right, just making sure we're not
I learned today from Jimmy Skiles in conversation. We were asking about George O'Leary's statue. It is in storage there at the stadium.
Whose storage?
There's a storage closet.
Okay.
George
on
is
campus.
standing
I didn't know
in
if
there.
there was in like some public storage off, Chulota
Wouldn't you love
Avenue?
that though? Wouldn't you love to say you had George just at home? You just took. I mean, I'm sure it's heavy.
How much would you pay for that statue?
I don't know.
$50.
You're asking the wrong guy.
$50.
$50. All right. Your favorite segment. I've hit you with 3 Easter jokes. What's in the box? And who's it brought to us by?
Alumni Hall, of course, Trace. You can find some great stuff there. 4100 North Alpha. Or, hey, if you're online, check them out online as well. AlumniHall.com.
I haven't been there in a while.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to go and spend money.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I got to save up for the George statue.
Well, I'll have $50 of you.
How many mini George statues do you think they'd sell?
Define mini.
Just little, like
bobblehead.
I had a little bobblehead doll.
I mean, of in the pantheon of people whose mini statue they could sell, I think George would be lower on the list.
They should do bobbleheads. Can we get bobbleheads as swag? Can we get, bobblehead of you, bobblehead of me?
Sure. It's not your budget. All right, here we go. Here's this week's What's in the Box question brought to you by Alumni Hall.
Yeah, I'm timing this. I'm timing my answer. I'm going to keep this to 30 seconds.
I don't think you can screw this one up. I think this is fine for you, actually. This is really right up your wheelhouse.
Stopwatch.
Do you eat?
Start.
Do I need an AI voice for this? Do you eat mac and cheese with a fork or a spoon?
Well, as we've talked about before, I have celiac, so there's not a lot of mac and cheese consumption. Fork would be the preference over a spoon.
Really? See, I'm a spoon guy because you can scoop that and get if you try to stab the noodle, and after a while, it just you're not missing. They're falling off.
What kind of noodles are you using in your mac and cheese?
Elbow macaroni situation. I'm talking the Kraft's OG Kraft with that package of cheese that's not really cheese, that probably was fertilizer that was on the grass at the bounce house. You're putting in that. I think you got to go spoon with that.
Yeah, fork.
Now, if it's fancy mac, give me a Seinfeld reference, give me fusilli Jerry, give me the fusilli pasta, then perhaps I go fork there. But I think you go spoon outside of that.
I've enjoyed this episode. There's been Paul made a Seinfeld reference. We've spoken about rooting for laundry. Now the fusilli. That's.
There's a question in the chat.
No.
Yes, there is.
No, I've gotten in and out under a minute here.
How does Trace do dishes?
What do you mean dishes? What does he mean?
When you eat stuff and the plate gets dirty and the cup gets dirty. Is that a hand wash situation? Is that a dishwasher situation?
Well, I've got one of those things so that I don't have to touch the dish, and then I throw it in the dishwasher. So
what do you mean?
It's a 2-wash. I mean, I'll wash it.
You get a little soap scrub situation.
Yeah. I'm not
how often's the dishwasher run at the Trelco Manor there?
Depends how often I'm home.
Okay.
Once a week, maybe. Once a week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Count on Dolly to.
That's a fair question. People are fascinated by your.
They should not be fascinated by anything that I am doing.
I'm not saying they should be, but they seem to be.
I don't know why. All right. What do you call?
Great question. How do you load the? You wearing gloves?
No.
Please tell me you have a pair of those yellow gloves in the kitchen. Please tell me.
I'm not.
You strap on the gloves and you go.
I'm not answering that question. Okay. What do you call an unconventional Easter egg, Adam?
Crock-a-doodle-doo.
Eggs centric.
That doesn't work though. Eggs. I guess that does work.
Yeah, that's tremendous. I want to thank Paul Catalina for being with us. Andrew Gregg right off the top, live from the John, and of course the contributions of Andrew Cherico. We will be out at the final practice of spring on Saturday. Have reaction from head coach Scott Frost, putting together some more football content to carry you through in the weeks ahead. So, Adam, thank you for being a part of this one, doing all you do behind the scenes. Everyone have a safe holiday weekend. Happy Easter. For Adam Eaton, I'm Trace Strelko. Go Knights.
Charge on.
Hey guys, I'm Pupa Warakunakro, and I'm UCF men's basketball guard, and thank you for watching Sons of UCF.
Can you edit that to say, I'm UCF men's basketball?
You're 2025, 2026.
He can't possibly enter the portal, could he? Oh,
does he have eligibility left?
He's a walk-on, right? He could enter. Yeah. Right? What year is he?
If he enters the portal, we got to shut the program down, right? I love you, Pooh. Don't go to the portal. Stay with us.